When we met you for the first time on Storyboard, I think it was 2001.
Right.
And I remember that
God, time flies, doesn't it? And 9 years ago, 10 years ago.
10 years ago. And the entire decade, very often we posed this question to you. One of the issues that the advertising agency business was grappling with was the rise of the holding company brand. You see. In 2011, we have got an announcement from the Cannes Lions Festival saying that they've got an award for the holding company of the year. So is that debate, Martin Sorrell, today finally put to rest?
I don't think it was ever a debate amongst clients. After all, that's the most important community. What clients want is the best people working on their business.
Do you feel totally vindicated?
No, there's nothing about vindication. I mean, the debate was in the trade press, which was the point I was trying to get over, and amongst our people, because our people are running their brands. They want people to join their brands. We don't make it WPP into one big elephantine, God forbid, company. What we do is maintain the networks, because there are diseconomies of scale, because we have conflicts of clients and sometimes even conflicts of people. So and also, you know, with the exception of media buying, there are not those economies of scale, and people like to work in smaller businesses. The perception is that smaller businesses are better. Clients also have a perception that bigger a business gets, an agency gets, the worse it gets. Perception, maybe not reality. So what you have to do is you have to have a sort of messy structure that I've always said that 21st century is not for tidy minds. I don't feel vindicated about it. I mean, Cannes is trying to develop other revenue producing opportunities.
That's very clear.
This will stimulate more awards, and therefore,
and more
every time you make an award, it costs you a lot of money to make that you make the application. So I think this is probably.
I'm not saying it's vindicated because of that. I'm just saying it seems to have turned full circle, right? And while you say that the trade reporters were interested in this debate, I think it was more the people in the agency business that was grappling with this change
that's true.
in their environment.
It was balanced between the two, because you know the trade magazines always like David versus Goliath. Interestingly, in recent weeks there've been stories on new types of holding companies. These holding companies that take investments, they're really roll-ups. They're people just trying to make money in the short term, in the hope that they can either punt on an IPO or punt on a sale, a roll-up and sale. I don't think they have long-term merit, and in fact, their financial models tend to be pretty flawed, because often they don't have access to the cash flow. They have investments in which all they get is dividends, and sometimes they don't get even dividends. So managing to fund the parent company or the holding company is quite difficult. So, you know, I think, listen, my view is, over the last 10 years, since you've been running Storyboard, probably the holding companies, parent companies, whatever, investment companies, whatever you want to call them, have probably become more powerful. But that's a function of two things, I think. One is geography and geographic development. The other is technology and technological development. You know, everything we do at the end of the day gets reduced to those two things. It's quite interesting that they have those two dynamics to them, and two variables to them. And I think parent companies, you know, this is interesting. Warren Buffett has just been here, and he was the first person. And he in the 70s and the 80s, he invested in Ogilvy and IPG, JWT, I think, as well. And he said they were a royalty. You should invest in them because they were cheap. They were only at 3 or 4 times earnings in those days. But you should invest in them because they're a royalty on the growth of US-based multinationals. And as US-based multinationals, the Americanization of the world, as we used to call it, now that we've moved to globalization, that was a fundamental phenomenon that if you bought into advertising agencies, and he was dead right. You know, he bought them when they're 3 or 4 times earnings, and the earnings were much lower than they are today. So it's a manifestation of that, I think, a continued. Now that doesn't mean that investment in talent has not become more important. That keeping it messy is important. That, you know, as we try and maintain our position in India, or even increase it, or in China or Brazil or Russia, that doesn't mean that we don't have to try new ways of aligning ourselves with the best talent here and elsewhere. We will do.
Is there a serious talent crunch that your industry is facing? Because you all are not doing enough to invest in talent.
No, exactly. Our industry doesn't fight for talent, they steal it. That's all they do. right? So you win a piece of business, you nick it from the competition. And you know, when I was at the Indian School of Business for the graduation ceremony, there were three or four graduates that we, as a group, presented awards to, I suppose, the best graduates for the year. And I said to one of them, you know, where are you going to go? And surprise, surprise, he said McKinsey. So we do not recruit like McKinsey as an industry. We do not recruit like Goldman Sachs. And unless we change the attitude and the way we do that, the industry is, if not doomed, certainly will be under pressure. I mean, just for example, in India, in years gone by, advertising, certainly when David Ogilvy used to come here as chairman of Ogilvy India, almost to his last days, that there was a respect for advertising and a respect for the industry and related marketing services. It was far greater then than it is today. And we were debating yesterday that technology in a way has replaced that. Certainly when you look at the class of the ISB, the incoming class is heavily investment banking and consulting. The outgoing class, the exit class, is even more in terms of that.
But is it because you don't pay the kind of scales that management consultancies or iBanks do?
Well, that is part of it. It's the investment banks more than the consultancies, because the consultancies don't, you know, is not that dissimilar. I mean, it is dissimilar. And the nature of our industry is very similar. I mean, basically, you know, you have my days filled with looking at different situations in different parts of the world, which is what all of our people do, sometimes on a country basis or city basis or regional basis or whatever. So it's very similar in concept. One is paying rations, but also another part of it is we don't emphasize enough what we do and how we do it. I mean, we do strategic thinking, we do creative execution, the big ideas, we do distribution, but we also do data analytics in a big way. You know, almost a quarter of our business is in consumer insight. You know, our research business here in India is a paragon of virtue in that sense. And then the application of technology, so the stuff that sort of Quasar does here, and its related businesses, is an example of sort of things. Now,
so you're saying that your business needs a bit of advertising?
Well,
at least to this target group, which is future MBAs? It
needs more investment. Well, you see, it's dangerous. So MBA is a part of it with us. It's first degree graduates. You know, our fellowship scheme, which I think is the model for what I'm talking about, we've been operating it for 12 years, I think it is. I think we have about 150 of these people. They come either first degree or second degree, postgraduates. Three different disciplines in 3 different parts of the world. Now, my biggest fear about that was it will be imitated by a competition. No way. Either because they don't like to imitate anybody doing what they do, plagiarize other things, steal and nick other ideas. But there's something that has to change. It has to change. Otherwise, the industry will degenerate. We did this 4As thing down in Austin. And the one thing that all 3 holding company CEOs were in violent agreement about was that. I remember somebody left us to go to one of the big consulting companies, I won't say which one, but a big one, and then came back to us. And I said, why did you come back? He said, well, at the consulting company, they all go around saying it is a fact that, whereas in our industry, you say we think that, right? So it's left brain and right brain, and it is a lifestyle thing as well. You know, it's probably a better, more balanced lifestyle than perhaps investment banking or consulting. But no, we have to wrestle with that. I mean, we have to. I mean, despite all the struggles that the investment banking industry has gone through, you know, in the last couple of years, and to some extent the consulting industry, but much less so. The young people, the young talented people at the really good schools are still attracted to those industries more.
WPP turned 25 last year.
Yeah, old.
25 years old last year.
26 this year, yes.
26 this year. And you ended, or rather started the 25th year of WPP by being the largest.
Yeah, which we've held that.
You've held that
crown.
So
we've held the World
next?
Cup for twice before.
So what's next? What's the ambition, Sir Martin Sorrell, at this point of time for WPP?
Well, it's I guess to do more of the same and improve the quality. I mean, you know, are we firing on all cylinders everywhere, either functionally or geographically? The answer is no. And we have to continue to improve. I mean, that's one thing. The second thing is to extend the business from the strategic, the creative execution, and the distribution further into application of technology and further into data analytics. I mean, those last two our competition doesn't do. I mean, Omnicom doesn't admit it, but they do have some research companies, and they have made extravagant bids for a couple of research companies recently. So doing doing better and doing sort of broader into technology, not devising technology, but the application of technologies that are successful, plus data analytics.
We saw the shift that WPP made very aggressively into emerging markets and new media.
Not emerging, they've emerged.
Emerged markets and new media, very, very systematically and strategically to grow. What happens next now that you're well set on course in reaching those targets in terms of what contributions they make to your revenues or how important they are to your business?
When we've talked over the years, we set that target of a third for each.
Yes.
Faster growing markets and for digital, and we're sort of roughly 30% for each. So we've upped the target to 35 to 40, without giving a time point on that, a time point of reference. But I think we are making progress, but we've got to make more progress. Consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds, and we're going to.
What's the new mantra, Sir Martin?
Well, the mantra is new markets, new media, and consumer insight. I don't know whether you describe that as new or not. If you said to me, what do you regret about the last few years that we didn't do more of faster growth markets, more of digital, more of consumer insight, more of application of technology, more of data analytics. The industry has had to deal with, apart from the talent issue that we talked about, a few years ago, people would say you're going to get slaughtered by Google, you're going to be disintermediated, so it was the G word. Then they said you're going to be slaughtered by the recession, the R word. So we've managed to withstand the forces and pressures of that. That doesn't mean that they haven't impinged on us, and it doesn't mean that we haven't been affected by them, but we've had to react, not just us, but our competitors too. And I think the industry actually, I am very surprised actually. If you said to me on September the 14th or 15th, 2008, that we would be where we are today, I would say you need your head examined, because the recovery, a lot of people say the recovery has been slow. I think it's been remarkably quick actually. I mean, far quicker and painful, because 2009, people thought the world was going to come to an end after Lehman. They were worried about efficiency, effectiveness, liquidity. People were very worried about liquidity after that weekend. Even GE was worried about liquidity. Warren Buffett said it was America's financial Pearl Harbor. So you had to react to that, very cautious in 2009. 2010, the world didn't come to an end, so let's build it in the fast growth markets like India, and let's be cautious in the West. And that continues in 2011, but more so, because what we saw in the fourth quarter of last year is the fast growth markets, China and India having had a first sort of quiet first 6 months of 2010, really took off in the second 6 months and have started this year very strongly.
Sir Martin,
thank you very much, and well done India again.
Thank you.